sitting. Unlike one of the speakers, I have good hearing capacity today, although my flight the day before was diverted to Ahmedabad because of the bad sandstorm. The problem with me is speaking, because speaking English is the problem, because my mother tongue is not an English. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this very important meeting, and also I would like to thank all the participants to have stayed until the end of this meeting, and I'm going to start my speech now. This is the title of my speech, How Prepared is Well Prepared. Nice title, which was given by General. And let us very briefly look back the history of our of the earthquake resistant design of Japan. It started late 19th century, and it was okay until 1880. We had maybe the first seismological society of Japan, I mean the seismological society in the world, in 1880. But we had very bad experiences since then. 1891, we had a Minowari earthquake with magnitude 8.6, and it killed 7,000 people. At that time, we were importing European construction technology to modernize the feudal old Japan. For most of Japanese engineers, brick buildings look much more advanced, stronger, modern, but when the construction of the Japanese conventional style at the time. But it did not take much time before we realized that the problem was not so simple. In 1891, we had Bada earthquake. All those imported structural styles just collapsed. And in that particular earthquake taught us that simple imitation of earthquake European technology was inappropriate in an earthquake-prone country like Japan. But since 1891, we had to wait for about 30 years before we had the prototype of our first seismic resistant design code in 1920. But soon after that, we had another very bad experience, 1923, very well-known Kanto earthquake, which killed more than 100,000 people. There are then newer type of buildings. At that time, you can see standing, but very much damaged. This is another one. This was 1923. And this is the place where about 40,000 people were killed in one place. And this serious damage to buildings by the Kanto earthquake triggered to enact Japan's first law for regulation for the design of buildings in urban areas in 1924. We had first law in 1924 with the horizontal design seismic coefficient of 0.1 and the height limit of 31 meters. And we decided, this is the most important point, I think. The first two things are of course important, but what, from my point of view, is more important is we decided to basically stop using bricks as construction material. And according to the law, since then, building engineers in Japan steadfastly held on constructing stiff buildings. And this is a building, one of the stiff buildings that survived the 1923 Kanto earthquake. And once established by the law, or once the law is established, usually it is well observed. There was another perhaps good thing in our country, but this often results in people's very conservative and inflexible attitude. As far as earthquake safety is concerned, however, structures gradually became stronger in Japan since 1924 regulation was introduced. This is one of such buildings built in 1927, very rich. Then 1948, there was another epoch-making earthquake took place, Fukui earthquake, near the city of Kyoto. 3,800 deaths was reported. There was a breach over there. And liquefaction did occur in this particular case, but people did not notice that this is the liquefaction, what we know now. So after this earthquake, many things actually took place, but what was important is this. The 1924 code was amended in 1950 to become the building standards law, and in which horizontal seismic coefficient was increased from 0.1 to 0.2. And what we started to study about the expansion of something different what we had been doing until then was late 1950. Until then, we were sticking to build very rigid, stiff buildings for almost 30 years or 40 years. And then, late 50s, researchers started dynamic analysis. Of course, very free, just to see whether tall buildings could be built in our country or not. Results were positive, and height limit of 31 meters was abolished in 62. So this particular regulation was introduced in 1924. So almost 40 years we were sticking to very old, conservative regulations. And I think what Japan can be proud of is this cautiousness or patience of about 40 years. Whereas in many other places, already the beginning, people started to build taller buildings. We were still building rigid and low-rise, actually, perhaps up to 8-story buildings for 40 years. And what I think, many people say that Japanese structures are better. But if our structures were better than those in other countries, I think we owe it to many engineers and workers near the bottom of the pyramid, not only a few engineers at the top. This is what is very important in our construction company, our construction business. But very unfortunately, things are changing. Perhaps things must be the same over here, because there are recent tendencies in construction business or in other any business perhaps, not in Japan but all over the world, to simply adopt the cheapest tender without considering the quality. And that is causing a bit of, not a big problem in our country. But except for this, I think our structures were, became gradually stronger and stronger. During 60s and 70s, damaging earthquakes continued to occur. Perhaps 1964 Niigata earthquake, you may know, liquefaction occurred everywhere. Bridge collapsed. Oil refinery get fired. All of these disasters or the damages are due to mostly liquefaction. And 1968, we have another earthquake, magnitude 7.9, in which the shear failure of short columns became a problem. In the same earthquake, this is 1968, we have a 100% collapse of the first and second story. And very fortunately, there was no people injured because this is university, and the earthquake took place before the school began. Tokachi earthquake 1968, this kind of damage occurred perhaps every 5-10 years in our country. 1978, this one is due to the unbalanced Ghana figure of the building, so it made a torsional motion and collapsed. So we had quite a few damaging earthquakes, even during 60s and 70s. But very fortunately, we succeeded in completing to build 1968 in Tokyo. And 1960s were the beginning of Japan's Republic age. 1964, we had Tokyo Olympics. And we successfully constructed bullet train, expressways, longer bridges, very long bridges, and tall buildings at many places in metropolitan areas. And we thought we finally began to cope with the Mother Nature. That was the problem. Summing it up again, from 60s to 80s, we built tall buildings, and then so and so, and our economy was bumping. And we began to think that our structures have become strong enough to withstand strong earthquake. But the problem was, I took it from Murphy's law, arrogance is too often the companion of excellence. Really, this happened. In 1995, actually our arrogance leads to our excellence, I thought. What we thought our excellence led us to a real misery. 1995, magnitude 7.3 earthquake hit the city of Kobe, Japan's sixth largest city, with perhaps about 2 million people, a little less than 2 million people. And many things took place there. Buildings collapsed, more than 6,400 people were killed altogether. And the nation was appalled by lack of leadership and absence of crisis management of the nation's top level in the initial hours following the earthquake. Actually, ministers, prime ministers, they couldn't do anything. For almost 50 years until then, in Japan, no damaging earthquakes of considerable size took place or actually hit urbanized areas. And in the same period, Japan was successful in making very big technological step forward. These two things are independent. Big earthquake did not take place or hit a metropolitan area, and Japanese technology advanced. But Japanese engineers were even professional people thought. And just combined these two things and thought, and Japanese structures have become strong enough. And as I told you, this arrogance was shattered by the 1995 Kobe earthquake. And after that, many things were changed. Special measures law on earthquake disaster prevention was enacted. Headquarters for earthquake research promotion was established. Basic disaster prevention plan was expanded. importance of social measures was identified. Importance of how to find out and strengthen weak structures was realized. And nationwide earthquake monitoring started. Now Japan is monitored by so many seismic seismometers and global GPS stations. And by using the outcome of this record, early earthquake warning system is now working in our country. Many people say this is a fantastic system. Of course, this is quite a fantastic system, but it isn't too fantastic. The system may look fabulous, but there are several very serious limitations. Because, as you can see here, early earthquake warning is sent from Japan Geological Agency to the area which is under constellation. But if the area under constellation is very close to the epicentral area, then there is not much time left for this go and back. That means the warning may not be issued before the arrival of strong motions. That happened many times. Within a year following the tsunami earthquake last year, about 100 public early earthquake warnings were issued. And later on, it was found about 60% were issued to the area where later on the earth intensity was found much less than it was expected when the issue was made. But in my opinion, a hit rate of 40% is rather satisfactory, or it is at least better than crying. But we have to do something to make this early earthquake warning more effective. We are trying to do that. It's important for the people to understand the significance of such system. It is also important for the people to be prepared to take actions when such warning is issued. And also it is important to repeat training to take such actions and to acknowledge that the system has the limitations. But what is important, most important, is to understand that such earthquake warning system is only one of the measures. And building should be strong enough, at least to survive the weak motions coming first. Otherwise, the early earthquake warning system doesn't work at all. After 1995 Kobe and Sendai earthquake last year, we were having damaging earthquakes, quite a few. In 2004, in Niigata area, we had earthquakes, we had earthquake in which Shinkansen derailed. 2008, in the northern part of Honshu Island, where a bridge collapsed and many soil and rock avalanches took place. And so even before 2011 tsunami earthquake, we were hit by quite a few damaging earthquakes. And this is my pretty personal opinion that there are three major factors to protect us from earthquakes. One is earthquake prediction. I don't think anybody will agree that earthquake prediction is possible in the near future. Just think about yesterday's big earthquake. Nobody told us that such a big earthquake takes place in the general area of the Christmas 2004 earthquake again. And almost nobody, I at least know one person, and nobody actually told us there will be an aftershock which is big as the one following the main shock, and also no scientist told us that particular earthquakes or those particular earthquakes has not simple strike slip, but the movement is horizontal. So they do not cause big tsunamis. So scientists just can't do that like this. So as far as I understand, earthquake prediction is difficult to realize in the near future. And what may be the second is earthquake insurance. This is also, I don't say this is useless, but it doesn't work much, is this. Because even getting earthquake insurance, it does not improve the strength of your house. You may get money, but you may lose your life. So what remains is structural reinforcement. At the moment, this is the only thing, only practical solution is structural reinforcement. We have learned this through many bad experiences. And if you hear a word like structural reinforcement, you may think that very nice tall buildings you find in the metropolitan areas in big cities in Japan, many tall buildings, new ideas to increase earthquake resistance. Very nice. Some of them are making use of new types of dampers, and they put them at many places in the building. I think this is not a bad thing, but we should not forget this is not the most important thing. What is more important maybe strengthening of public primary and junior high school buildings. When I say public here, I meant actually by mistake. I meant public is government-owned, government-run primary and junior high school. And many interesting data is here. As of April last year, there are about 116,000 buildings total. primary and junior high school, school buildings, and 41% which were built after 1982 are earthquake resistant. And 49,038.6% were checked for their earthquake resistant capacity, and those which were not defective were just okay, and which were found defective were strengthened. So about 38.39% were made stronger. So that means more than 80% of the school buildings are at the moment found earthquake resistant. That leaves about 20%. The 90% are examined for earthquake resistantness and found they are defective but yet to be strengthened. The worst is 786 buildings, which consists 0.7%. They are yet to be checked for strength. But the ministry says by the end of the fiscal this of 2012, 90% of the whole buildings, school buildings, will be earthquake resistant. And from my point of view, building beautiful buildings more structurally strong against earthquake is of course important, but policy like this is much more important than building modern buildings more earthquake resistant. I would like to summarize what were itemized after the earthquake of last year. Some of the things may be important. It's not on the PowerPoint. Number one is about 65% of the dead and the missing were older than 60 years old, whereas in the total affected population, only 31% was in the same age group. We will be having more of this kind of tendency in the future. Number two, initial responses were quick. We learned this from our failures in the Kobe earthquake in 1995. The response office at Prime Minister's office was established within 5 minutes after the occurrence of the earthquake. In the case of the 1995 Kobe earthquake, the first cabinet meeting was held several hours after the earthquake outbreak. Number three, the extreme disaster management headquarters was established half an hour after the earthquake occurrence. This was the first establishment of this kind of headquarters ordained by the law. Number four, disaster headquarters at various levels was quickly established, and various laws and acts were applied to affected people and areas within 2 to 3 days. The disaster was designated as a disaster of extreme severity on the very next day following the earthquake. Number 5, rescue operation was carried out in close collaboration of many organizations: National Police Academy, Fire and Disaster Management Agency, Japan Coastal Guard, Ministry of Defense, and various international rescue teams, including people from India. Number 6, the Disaster Relief Act was flexibly applied so that not only the prefectures in the disaster-stricken area, but also those outside the afflicted area can actively provide disaster relief to afflicted people. Number 7, about 50 billion US dollar supplementary budget came into effect on May the 2nd. A total reconstruction budget of about 240 billion US dollars has been approved over the total period of 5 years. Number 8, measures were taken to quicken the procedures for providing aid money based on the Act on Support for Livelihood Recovery of Disaster Victims. Special financial support was also provided to local governments that promote rapid relief and recovery, reduction and exemption of social insurance premiums for afflicted people, and financial assistance to small and medium-sized enterprises. By listening what I told you now, you may think that things are very smoothly rolling on. But at present, 1 year after the earthquake, we are hearing to more than several voices of dissatisfaction about the execution of these policies. We must listen to these voices more than those that have highly rated the responses and decisions, because unsolved homework is found in such dissatisfied voices. I think I'm going to finish perhaps almost all. Disaster measures are all very indigenous and so difficult to generalize. We, fortunately or unfortunately, of course unfortunately, had repeated earthquakes, some big and some medium-sized every 5 to 10 years. So we had opportunities to learn from them. And we generally observe laws and regulations once they are established. And this is another very important factor. Japan was well off during the 60s, 70s, and probably early 80s. We were able to put into practice what we had learned into practice. And the media of Japan is successfully scaring the people of future catastrophe. Actually, I'm not sarcastic. I was looking at the television yesterday, and I was a little bit surprised that some of the people, after the tsunami warning is issued, they were on the beach and asked why, and they answered, "We are not scared. We would like to watch." As far as in Japan, we could not find that kind of people anymore. So, media has done something good. Well, this is the second last point. What is important? We must remember that nature is not always kind to us. She is watching for a most unguarded moment. That may be now. Thank you for your kind attention to my very bad English.